Hello and welcome to Rise. I am jumping on my chair. I am so excited to have Dr. Joe Vitale with us. He's truly my legend, and I want to read you his bio. It's super impressive, and I want to share it with you. Dr. Joe Vitale is a globally famous author, marketing guru, movie, TV, and radio personality, musician, and one of the top 50 inspirational speakers in the world. And his many best-selling books, including The Attractor Factor, Attract Money Now, Zero Limits, and his latest release, The Miracle 6 Steps to Enlightenment, and Anything is Possible. Joe Vitale is a popular leading expert on the law of attraction in many movies, including The Secret. He discovered the missing secret not revealed in the movie. And he's been on Larry King Live, Donnie Detached, The Big Idea, CNN, CNBC, CBS, ABC, Fox News, Fox and Friends, and Extra TV. He's also been featured in the New York Times and Newsweek. So this is super impressive. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Of course, I've been looking forward to this. Your cause, your movement, what you're doing is very important, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Oh, thank you. Really, so much gratitude for your wealth of knowledge, for your work. You know, I've been following your work for many years, and I've been part of your clearing limiting beliefs certification program, and the Ho'oponopono teachings and the hypnotherapy. And I just love what you bring to the world. It is, words will fail to describe it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I can't wait to dive into the topic of our conversation, which is overcoming challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, this series is really produced for women to rise beyond trauma, beyond wounds, beyond limiting beliefs, into their power, into their, you know, into their gifts, and really bring it online and shine and really be truly who they are meant to be in this lifetime. So I really would love to hear from you. What is your wisdom in regards to overcoming challenge, right? We all have those challenges.
Well, that's true right there. We all have those challenges. So let me share a little something about me. Over the last 2 years, I have gone through a divorce that should have been over in a day because I was willing to give everything away. But it ended up being a persecution of my life and business, and it lasted over 2.5 years. And this was excruciating. This was not only expensive, this was agonizing. During the same time, my father died, my best friend died, a family member attempted suicide. I created a new relationship with somebody who developed Lyme disease and was on her deathbed. And I was her caretaker during the time I'm going through divorce and grief and all those other emotions. And then, of course, the pandemic hits. Pandemic removes my biggest source of income, which is traveling, being on speaking engagements, and getting paid well to do it. It all has stopped. This has been the last 2.5 years. I'm a guy who was homeless 40 years ago. I was in poverty for 10 years. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to have challenges. And here I am at age 67 going through yet another one. So when you say we all have challenges, we absolutely all do. I wrote a song way back in 2012 that ironically I was just promoting this morning called Everybody's Going Through Something. And it's the idea that every one of us is going through some sort of challenge. And depending on who we are, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter. They can be big or small, but they are to us life and death issues. So the very first thing that I would say is to understand it's not unusual to go through a challenge. I'm not dismissing it. Obviously, I've gone through the dark night of the soul myself, so I know how much that can hurt. But understanding that you're not alone is one of the big payoffs and benefits to help you be a little bit more comfortable. So that's the first insight. You're not alone. The second one is, when my divorce started and it began to be a persecution, I was confused. I was emotional. I was hurting. And I remember asking one of my attorneys, I said, "You do this for a living. You do this night and day. This is my life." I said, "I don't know how to handle this." And I said, "What is the best advice you ever heard on going through a challenge like this?" And he thought for a minute, and then he said, "Focus on the future. Focus on the future." And I remember that as a takeaway, which is my second tip. It would be, yes, I know there's a challenge. Yes, I know it hurts. Yes, I know that we have to rebuild ourselves and maybe our self-image and our self-esteem. But if we focus on the future, what we want to create, where we want to go, we are now empowering ourselves and creating life the way we want to be. And instead of feeling like a victim, now we start to feel empowered. Now we start to create something really great. And the third thing that I would say is, and I've done this, is don't be afraid to ask for help. I've had a coach and mentor since 1985. And during this divorce and challenge I've gone through, I've called on her again. And so if you get to the corners where you feel like I can't do this by myself, raise your hand and ask for help. I think that's one of the wisest things we can do. Don't do these things alone. There are times when I felt like I have all the tools. I'm supposed to be a self-help expert, a spiritual teacher. I've written all these books. And here I am feeling like I can't do this by myself. And so I would just say, I need help. And I would call for help. So those are 2 or 3 things I would say right off the top of my head for anybody facing a challenge.
I love that. I love how you so humbly said, I don't know, I need help. And I think this is a big, big takeaway, because asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength, right?
That's right. It
and
absolutely
also,
is. We are
ahead.
not here alone. We are on the planet with 7 billion other people. Life is all about relationships. Everything that we want comes through other people, whether it's money, whether it's success, whether it's relationship. It all comes through our relationships. So we need to understand that if we're having a struggle on our own, it behooves us to just reach out. The other thing that I would say is, decades ago, I was in a seminar. And it was a seminar where I was struggling, but I raised the money to go to the seminar. And the woman on stage said, "How do you feel when somebody asks you for help? How do you feel when somebody says, I need your help?" And I thought, well, I feel good. If I can help them, I'm glad to help. And I feel good because I helped somebody. And they said, well, if you're struggling and you need help and you don't ask for help, you've denied that feeling to the other person. And I remember thinking about that, and I thought, I never looked at it that way, that people in general do want to help. If they can help you, they do want to help. So reaching for help is good for you, but it's also good for the person who's going to help you. And that's just calling on friends or family or people in your social circle. But I'm also saying, and I've done this, when I'm at that point where I feel like I can't do it alone, or my friends can't support me in the way that I need, or I'm really feeling something that seems stuck in me, I call a therapist, I call a counselor, I call a coach, or I call in the woman that I've had since 1985 is Mandy Evans. I call her because I know I don't know it all. I don't know it all. I'm still learning. And if I am hurting and I'm going through a challenge, then the wisest thing to do is just say, I could use some help right now, and get out of it with help.
Right. And it's also in relationship that we get hurt, and in relationship that we heal. So, yes. Right? Every hurt is in context of some kind of a relationship. And so to really heal, it really helps even to be witnessed by somebody, even to just be in a safe space with somebody else that is non-judgmental and can just be there for you to even go through your emotions, right?
Absolutely, yes. I would say that a lot of healing comes from simply being heard, simply being heard. I think it was Freud who said one of the best ways to heal yourself is to have no secrets, to have no secrets. Most of us keep everything inside of ourselves, and it can stew, it can fester, it can create illness, it can create wounds, it can create resentment. And very often, if it stays bottled down long enough, it can explode inappropriately down the road in some other situation, in some other relationship. So I think it's very wise to talk to somebody, because talking relieves a lot of that tension. Talking relieves the secret. Talking relieves a lot of the psychic energy that is keeping us within us. So just talking to a friend is healing. And I know that in therapy, a whole lot of therapy is just the therapist listening. A whole lot of it is having somebody who is actually paid to listen to you as you get rid of what is festering inside of you. So I totally agree that sharing it is a healing of it, and sharing it, speaking it, vocalizing it to a trusted soul. I'm not saying post it on the internet. That's not what I'm talking about in terms of a healing. I'm talking about sharing it with a trusted friend or a professional who has been trained to listen non-judgmentally, as you pointed out.
Right. And you've been talking about holding a secret. And really, when we hold something in, we feel shame for sharing it. And it's actually, shame is the fear of disconnection. But when we share our essence, when we share our vulnerability, we actually create more connection. So, so to drop shame, in that context, it actually helps to talk about it, as you mentioned.
Well, we have to
Right.
look at why we don't want to talk about things. You do mention shame, and that would be one of them. But a lot of us think that we need to be perfect, especially women that are brought up to act in a certain way and to behave in a certain way and to think and respond in a certain way. When they're not doing that, they feel like they're wrong. They feel like they're bad. They feel like they are something to be ashamed of. And that's not true. Those are all kind of programming that has come to us by the society that we're in, the culture that we're in, the parents who raised us. And we need to honor how we feel. I think that is one of the bottom line messages to get across, at least at this moment in this interview, is honor how we feel. It's also important to realize you're not alone. This goes back to the song, everybody's going through something. When we sit here and we think that I'm bad or I'm ashamed because of what I went through, we think we're the only ones who went through it. But when we start to realize with so many people on the planet and throughout history, other people have gone through it too. You are not alone. It is not your fault. One of my favorite movies is Good Will Hunting, with Robin Williams and Matt Damon. And there is an unforgettable scene in there when Matt Damon, who has been abused, who has been angry, who is a kid who is lost, is going to see the therapist, who's Robin Williams. And at one point, Robin Williams says to him, "It's not your fault." And he says it 11 times in the movie. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. When you hear this enough, I got chills even as I'm repeating this, because I'm realizing that so many of us, because we feel ashamed, feel that it's our fault. And what the message of that movie and the message in part of what I'm saying is, it's not your fault. Knowing it's not your fault can free you. It can release a whole lot of what's been stuck, the secret, the trauma, the challenge, the embarrassment, the shame, when you realize it's not your fault. There's so many things that go into play into any one incident. There's all of us acting out from our unconscious minds. Most of us who have gone through things, whether it's a trauma, it's an abuse, it's something that, we wish didn't happen, but it did. we have to realize that the other people involved were probably unconscious to their own behavior. And you were probably unconscious to your own behavior. And realizing that this was playing out on a level that neither one of any of us was conscious to, we can start to realize it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not your fault. We can then start to heal from it. We can look within ourselves and heal whatever limiting beliefs might have been there or might still be there. We can heal our own self-esteem, our own self-worth. We can look for our own value. I posted a video a few days ago that I posted a year ago, and I reposted it. And it was a school teacher talking to a group of kids. And he held up, I think it was a $5 bill, 5 euros, 5 American dollars. He held up the $5 bill and he said, how many people here want this? And all the kids raised their hand. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. And then he crumpled it up. He crumpled it up so it was all damaged. And he says, how many of you still want it? And they all said, oh, I still want it. And then he threw it down on the floor and he stomped on it and he got it all dirty. And he picked it up and he says, how many still want it? And they all said, we all still want it. And he was making the point that even though this thing that we value has gone through a lot and has been dirtied, has been, we could say, shamed, and has been publicly humiliated, it still had the same value. And he was telling the kids, even if you might have been abused, even if you might have been bullied, even if you might have been shamed by teachers, family, friends, parents, who knows, you still have value. You have the exact same value before it, as well as after it. And so I think all of these things are, oh, you're doing such important work in helping everybody, particularly women, to get past this. Because like the teacher with the money, you still have the same value. You're still golden. You're still holy. You're still an angel. You're still from the divine, even with whatever took place. And realizing the message from the movie, Good Will Hunting, that it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You can get past all of this and actually use it to leapfrog into further growth.
I love your story. I had chills all over my body. It's such an amazing illustration exactly for that. I mean, how many of us have felt broken at times?
Yeah.
I certainly did. And you know, I found myself in situations, in places where I really was so down, you know, whether it was after drug abuse, whether it was after sexual abuse. And, you know, I really felt broken. I felt like a mess. And it's only when I took the responsibility and actually did the healing work that I realized that in my inner essence, I am whole and divine and perfect, and everything else is on the periphery and can be healed. And you mentioned feeling all the feelings, and that is a key point in my message, because we can only heal what we feel. And I think that as a culture, we have missed something really fundamental about our entire spectrum of feelings. And I think that a lot of us as children have been, we received a message regarding our feelings that some have been classified as good ones and some have been classified as bad ones. And there is no such things, because as human beings, we are, you know, we have all the colors, we have all the notes of the human spectrum of emotions, and we all bound to feel grief and sadness and heartbreak and anger and rage. You know, it's just part of being a human being. And many of us have received the message that that emotion is not good, or when the natural body regulating system comes into activation, which is crying, then crying was not good. You know, how many, especially men, have received the message that, you know, if you're a man, you should not be crying, or I'll give you a reason to cry for. So I feel that our emotional makeup as human being has been really compromised. Right?
And I would agree with that. This goes back to the upbringing, depending on what country we were in, what culture we were in, what parents we had, what kind of religion they may have had. I would say in general, yes, we've been taught that certain emotions should not be expressed at all, or maybe we've been taught you can express it in private. I know that I, as a man, my father was an ex-Marine during World War II. He was a prize fighter, meaning he was a boxer. He had too much testosterone. He was very macho. And for him, holding it together, not crying, not showing pain was a heroic thing for him. And I grew up hearing that. Then when I am hurt and I want to cry, I battle with that internal tug of war that says, no, don't do that. That's not a manly thing to do. And then the human part of me, because as you're pointing out, this is part of the human experience. The emotions are real. The emotions are natural. We're not robots who have been wired to don't show this and do show that. But depending on our programming, we will act like we're wired. And so I had to get past all of that. And I've done so much work on myself that I would say I am, plus my father has passed on at this point. So that influence isn't even there in a physical way. And I would say this is true for women as well, that they've been taught, again, we're speaking in general terms, but I think everybody watching can probably relate in some way, shape, or form, where they were taught that certain emotions were inappropriate to show in public, giving you a little bit of a window to show them to yourself in private. But what it seems to me is most of us who were told not to show the emotions, like crying, in public, don't even do it in private. We try to lock it down. And that is unhealthy. When we bury a feeling, an emotion, we bury it alive. This is something I learned decades ago. We bury it alive. And what it means is it's still in us. We may not consciously pay attention to it, but this is where somebody might be driving down the road and somebody pulls out in front of them and suddenly we go ballistic. We over-respond to their situation because the over-response is all the bottled emotion that didn't get expressed appropriately in the moment that it was occurring. We stuffed it down, we made it hidden in a way, but the unconscious didn't forget it. The unconscious just let it go underground, and then you kind of stockpiled dynamite. Over time, when you didn't express the anger, when you were upset, you just kind of bit your lip, or you didn't cry when you really were hurt. All of that is suppressed until there's just that moment where it could be somebody in the store says the wrong thing, or you have to wait in line, and now suddenly you are so impatient, you just explode. This is why we need to express our feelings appropriately, either in the moment or as close to the moment as we're feeling them. And as you pointed out, I like reminding us, we're human beings in a human experience. These are things that they're there in us to actually feel, not withhold, destroy, repress, try to deny in some way. Again, we're not robots, we're not machinery, we're human.
I love that. I love that. For me, the definition of trauma is not necessarily something huge that, an event that happened that life kind of goes, before and after, because it was so pivotal. For me, trauma can be even not being able to process emotions in the natural way and then suppressing them. And as you pointed, they still there, the unconscious mind still aware of them. And even in the body, the body uses vital energy to keep them at bay. So they actually pull in vital energy away from the body to keep it there at bay. And as you said, some trigger comes and it's like a volcano. Right?
Yes, that's a great observation, because what it's showing is that a lot of people say they have problems creating their life. Now, I was in the movie The Secret, so a lot of people have heard about the law of attraction because of that movie, but they go to apply it and they say, well, it doesn't work for me, or I can't attract what I want, I can't manifest my dreams. And what's missing there is, first of all, besides a deeper understanding of how the law of attraction works, because it works on the subconscious and unconscious, not so much the conscious level. That's the first level of it. But the second thing is to realize that a lot of us have our energy being used up in keeping past hurts alive. And what I mean by that is when we don't express the hurt, and again, it doesn't have to be some sort of violent, traumatic war zone kind of a hurt. It could be something where somebody said something and you're hurt because you're genuinely hurt because they said something. Maybe it was a trusted friend, maybe it was a stranger, but they said something that hurt you and it got lodged in you. And as you keep reflecting on it, you are using up the energy that is available in this moment to create the life you want, to keep that wound still bleeding. We're carrying the wound. And as we carry the wound, we use up present day energy to hold it within ourselves. This is advanced thinking. So I'm glad that you're bringing it up, because the good news is, as soon as we let go of that hurt, the energy that was being burned up in holding the hurt is now available to us to create the life we really want. That is one of the big, I hope people take notes or something, or watch this interview more than once, because that is such a huge reality. I know for the longest time, especially growing up, I'm very private. I like my books. I wanted to live in the library or bookstores. You know, this is all before the internet. And I knew that I was being hurt by people that would say the wrong thing at the wrong time, even as a kid growing up. And I carried the hurt and I carried the anger. And I didn't realize until somebody pointed out decades later, that the only person I was hurting by holding on to that hurt was me. The only person. Even the times when I was so angry at somebody else, I wanted to create some sort of revenge. I wanted to get back at them at some way, shape, or form because that's how they hurt me. That thinking, that energy drain, that ball of anger in me never touched the other person, never hurt them, never alerted them, never got near them. It was burning me up. It was killing me. And when I realized that, there was a little aha, and I thought, wait a minute, this isn't working the way I thought it was working. I need to let go of that. It's an old wound, brings some sort of adult awareness to it, spiritual insight to it, so it can leave. And when it leaves, I'm not only free, but I have all that energy that was being used up that I can now direct to my next book, or my next song, or my next blog post, or the next video I want to record. Instead of being used up in a self-destructive way, now it's being used in a self-directed, creative way. And that's available to all of us.
I love what you just shared. It's been said so eloquently, and you described exactly the essence of my message. I mean, right there and then. You know, we have energy coming from the universe, right? We have that aliveness. And when there is blockages that, you know, whether it's mental chatter and takes our mental capacity, or emotional baggage that has not been processed and still lives in the cells of the body, then that's where our aliveness goes to. That's where it's been used instead of creating wonderful things in the world, which we all here to do, right? All of us,
Yes.
no exception.
And there are no exceptions. Yeah, I really believe that we are, first of all, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And as spiritual beings, we all came in with a mission. The mission doesn't mean necessarily curing cancer or curing COVID, but if that is your mission, please hurry up and fulfill it. It could just be, you know, writing a children's book, or opening a bakery, or being the most loving parent to your 3 kids. It doesn't have to be a life and death heroic mission that goes into the history books, but it is a mission unique to you. And one of my favorite stories is I remember being in Chicago years ago, and I was in a hotel room and the toilet wasn't working well. So I called a plumber. And the plumber came, and I swear he was the happiest plumber I had ever seen in my entire life. And I thought, there's the example. You know, he's doing his life mission. He's being the plumber. And I'm doing my life mission by being the author and occasionally speaker and musician. And each of us has something like that. It's different for each of us. And my own philosophy is when you follow your mission and I follow my mission and everybody watching and listening follows their missions, life works. That's when life works. When we deny our mission or pretend we don't have a mission or spend so much time focused on the past or on some past hurt that we don't actually begin our mission, then life kind of limps along. Life has rocky roads for all of us. I think that's part of our awakening as a people. We are here to awaken to our own personal mission, whatever that happens to be. And again, big or small, it doesn't matter. For some people, they'll go, oh, I don't want Joe Vitale's life. You know, when he was traveling, he was gone all over the world. I want to stay at home, or I don't want to write books, you know, but for me, it's exhilarating. It's my life mission. And so that's what we want to look for. Follow the light, follow the juice, follow the passion in your particular life to express your particular life mission.
Exactly like that. You know, the other day, my daughter showed me a very sophisticated 3D video of the race of the sperm getting to the egg. And, you know, when I saw that, what it takes to actually, for you being here, you're already a winner. You're already by far a winner to just come here, to just make it happen. So, you know, if you're here, you are definitely meant to be here, and you have a sacred mission, big or small, as you said. And it's really about clearing what stands in your way, all those limiting beliefs and all that muck that, you know, in the form of unprocessed emotions and maybe an inner dialogue that you're carrying from your mother or father or teachers or, you know, your society or something that actually keeps you away, because you already have everything that it takes to fulfill your mission, right?
Yes, I totally love that. I totally love it. Oh, I want to say a couple of things that seem a little random, but they're coming from inspiration. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and just say them. Debbie Ford is an author who's gone now, who wrote books like The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And she wrote books like Spiritual Divorce and a lot of other books. She was an enlightened teacher who I personally knew and personally loved. And I remember her talking to a woman who was just angry. The woman was really angry about stuff that had happened in her past. And Debbie Ford said, well, if you want to hold on to your anger, you can use it. You can use it to create something that makes a difference around the very issue that had made you angry. And I remember thinking that's actually brilliant, because part of me would be like, well, let's just get rid of the anger. But what Debbie Ford was saying is, no, if you want to keep your anger, well, let's actually leverage it for good. Let's move it in a new direction and use the energy of the anger to repair whatever it is that caused you to be angry in the first place. And it was a woman, it was women's issues. And so she was going to do that. The other thing that I want to say is part of what's helped me get through the last 2.5 years is Stoicism. And I've read lots of Stoicism books, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and the whole gang from thousands of years ago. And part of what they point out is the challenges that you're going through right now are actually good. And they're good because they're developing a latent strength within you that wouldn't get developed without the challenge. Now, this again is an important concept, and when we're hurting, we don't really want to hear things like this. But I'm giving people a different perspective, much like I needed a different perspective as I went through divorce and started to feel like I was a victim. I don't want to feel like a victim. I want to be empowered. So when I started to realize, wait a minute, maybe this is here to actually develop parts of me that were on the weak side or not the developed side or on the latent side. And one of the examples the Stoics would use is that Hercules would never have been Hercules if he didn't have things to struggle with. If Hercules was born and ate at Denny's every day and ate ice cream every night and drank beer as he went to sleep, we would never have heard of the character. But because Hercules had to go and fight the challenges that were in front of him, it built his character, it built his muscles, and ended up creating what is a superhero to a whole lot of people. So again, I'm saying all these different things, whether it's about Debbie Ford or Seneca and the Stoics, to help people kind of look at the idea that the challenge you're going through might actually have some good qualities to it.
Right, absolutely. And you can't sometimes see it from the present moment. And that's why I love the, as you said in the beginning, look at the future, because you can't see the full picture from where you are, especially when you're so emotionally involved in a challenge. You can only see it when you look at the rear mirror back, right? And you look at your life and you see, oh, of course, that happened because now I'm able to do that. I've got this new skill. I dived into the depth of my soul. I maybe cultivated compassion or forgiveness or empathy or all those qualities that would not be if not for the challenge. And, you know, I'm coming from this space that I have full trust in life. I really feel that everything is orchestrated by divine synchronicity and by divine perfection, and we can't see it from our human judgmental mind, and especially not when we deep in it. But if we change that mentality from being a victim to actually being a co-creator with life itself, then sometimes we just have to live in that moment, knowing that there's a future waiting. The future will be different, right? We move in, nothing is stagnant, nothing stays the same. And trust that, it is, life is happening for us and not to us.
Yeah, you're talking about faith in many ways there. And I agree that we need to have faith in ourselves, for one thing, that we can handle whatever's going on. One of my catchphrases that has helped me is the idea that one day at a time, it's all fine. One day at a time, it's all fine. Marcus Aurelius, who's the poster boy for Stoicism, basically had said that, is it endurable? If it's endurable, then endure it and stop complaining. And I remember in the early stages of the divorce, and it's turning into a persecution, I was taking long walks at night by myself, and I'm talking to God. I'm talking to the divine, the great something. I'm looking at the sky and talking. And I would ask myself, can I endure it? And I would say, I don't want to, but I can. I don't want to, but I can. And when I could answer I can, then I realized, just get through today. One day at a time, it's all fine. And as you go through each day, before you know it, it's over. Before you know it, you've gone on to the new life and the new creation. And another thing that I would say is, and this is in one of my books, my book, The Attractor Factor, which is the book that got me into the movie The Secret, there was a coach who had said, have you ever noticed that a year or so after something that you considered bad had occurred, that a year or so afterwards, you actually saw the humor in it and you laughed about it? And almost everybody goes, yeah, a year, 2 years later, you find it. And he went on to say, well, if it existed 1 or 2 years later, didn't it actually exist in the moment it happened too? And it's like, oh, that's a head turner. You're reminding yourself that in this moment, the moment that you're saying is hellish, the moment that you're saying is crap, the moment that you're saying is hurting, the moment that you're saying, I want it to be over, in this moment, there's some way to look at it humorously that you're going to notice a year from now. And if it exists a year from now, it must be in this moment here too. These kind of quotes and techniques and ideas can open our minds up just enough to let it be a little easier to get through.
So beautiful. That's, yeah, exactly it. One day at a time, and tomorrow will look different, right? Nothing stays the same.
That's right.
Um, I really, really love your work around the Ho'oponopono. I personally use it. I do it. I do daily cold immersions in the Atlantic Ocean, and
Oh,
this is one thing that I use when I'm in the water, and it keeps me. I always say to myself, I'm only going to sing it 10 times, and then I push it to 20, and then to 30, and eventually I do 100. That's my kind of goal, and I sing it to the ocean, and I feel that the water has such a capacity as a carrier to just, you know, ripple it out. And I feel the effect of it inside of me, outside of me. It's just phenomenal. And I really, really, I brought about it in my book. I referenced you as the teacher. And
oh, thank you.
I feel so aligned to have you here on the summit talking about it. And I really want our audience to, for those that are not familiar with that, I'm sure many are, because it's just went so wide and far. But to just talk about it a bit, and perhaps even do a little embodiment with it, because it's just such a gift I want to leave with the audience.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. Ho'oponopono has single-handedly transformed my life. And I'm very grateful that I got to write the book that introduced it to the world in the book Zero Limits. In short, I usually remind people that there was a story that captivated me, and this story is what I put in my book, Zero Limits, that captivated the world. And the story is a true story of a therapist who helped heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals at the state hospital in Hawaii. And these were criminals who had caused a lot of damage in the world. I mean, they were violent, they were killers, rapists, you name it. They were so violent that they had to be shackled or sedated in the prison hospital every day. And doctors would quit, nurses would quit, social workers would quit because they hated the environment there. The hospital needed to have funding, so they needed to have a licensed doctor. They finally found one that would work there, but he said, I'm not going to work on the patients. He says, I'm going to do my own brand of therapy. And he says, I'm basically going to work on myself. And they were like, whatever, we need to have somebody here. And they hired him. Well, the long story short is he practiced something called Ho'oponopono. You don't need to know the whole word or remember it or spell it, but Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian healing method that has been modernized by a woman who was enlightened and received the inspiration to teach it to others. And she taught it to this therapist, and the therapist went to the hospital and he used Ho'oponopono on himself. Within a few months, those patients started not to need to be shackled or sedated. A few months after that, they started to be pronounced as healthy, normal, and some of them were being released. 4 years later, the entire ward of those original patients were all released as being healthy and normal again. So when I first heard the story, I thought, this is too wild. This is too amazing. This can't be true. It must be an urban legend. But I was intrigued. And I went looking and I found the therapist. His name is Dr. E. Haleakala Hu Lin. And I talked to him on the phone. Then I went out and I worked with him. Then we did 3 seminars together. We co-authored the first book. And so what was he doing? Ho'oponopono is a prayer-like technique that you do within yourself, no matter what you think is the problem. So in his case, he's looking out and he's seeing mentally ill criminals, but he's not working on the mentally ill criminals. He's working on his perception of the mentally ill criminals. Now, this is a very important distinction because Ho'oponopono works on you and your perceptions of your life, your problems, your relationships, the traumas you think you went through. All of that is based on your perceptions of the experience, which means everything is inside of you. When you think about it, all the things you perceive as being problems aren't out there. Your perceptions are in here. They're triggered by something you think is out there, but the trigger is in you. The perceptions are in you. So it's real important to bring it all the way back home. You can't blame anybody, because what are you blaming people for? You're blaming them for something you think is wrong. Where is the thinking it's wrong taking place? In you. So you take everything inside yourself and then you use Ho'oponopono. It's the simplest of simple things, as you know. There are advanced levels. I did write 2 more books. I do have certification programs. There's a lot to it, but people can use the 4 phrases right now. So Dr. Hulen is observing what he considers to be a problem, but he knows it's not out there, it's in him. Goes inside himself, and then inside himself as a kind of prayer to God, the divine, what I've ended up calling the great something. He's saying 4 phrases. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Says them in any order, doesn't say them out loud, doesn't say them to the patients, only says them inside himself as he's feeling whatever he's feeling, and as a kind of communication with the creator, with a higher something, a higher self, the great something. This is the essence of Ho'oponopono. And what I invite people to do is, even right now, we can do this right now, is consider something that's bothering you right now. And you could say it's another person. It could say the experience you've gone through. You can say it's been a trauma, it's been a challenge, whatever the problem is. Focus on it for a moment. Allow it just to come inside of you. We know it's not on the outside. Everything you are thinking about it, feeling about it, considering it is all in you. So it's in you. Let it be there. And as you're feeling it, now imagine that you're calling up God, whatever your version of God is. It could be Gaia, it could be nature, it could be the universe, it could be the cosmos, it could be the great something. We all have different words for it. It could be your higher self, whatever you want to call that. And you're saying, whatever is going on in me, you're asking it to take care of it, to remove it, to clean it, to clear it. And the request is those 4 phrases, which you can say in any order. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And that's kind of a shorthand. I'll take 1 more minute to explain what's actually going on. When you're saying things like, please forgive me, you're not saying you're at fault. You're not saying you're wrong. You're not saying you need punished. What you're saying is, please forgive me, because I don't know what my own belief systems are. I don't know what's in my subconscious or unconscious mind. I'm sorry for being unconscious. That's it. The example I use is, if you go to a supermarket, a store, a mall, crowded place, and you bump into somebody, don't you naturally turn and go, I'm sorry? And why? You said, I'm sorry, because you didn't see them there. Why didn't you see them there? Because you were unconscious. You were focused on something else. So when you say, I'm sorry and please forgive me, you're basically just saying, I wasn't aware of my own beliefs. I'm sorry, please forgive me for that. Thank you is really a statement of gratitude, which is one of the most wonderful things any of us can do at any time. And thank you is basically saying, thank you for healing me, for clearing me, for cleaning me of this particular belief or beliefs, whatever they may be. You don't need to know what the beliefs are. Ho'oponopono will just seek and find whatever they are and erase them. So thank you for erasing them. I love you. I really think if we just walked around saying I love you inside of ourselves, our lives would change forever. We don't have to say it to the other person. Just inside, we're going, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, as you go about your day. My God, your face, your energy, your vibrations, everything would transform. But I love you was one of the 4 statements. And you're saying, I love you for my life. I love you for my process. I love you for taking care of me. I love you for always being with me. All of these 4 phrases have layers of meaning. But all you really have to do is notice what's going on, whatever you're upset about. It's not about anything out there. Looks like it is. That's the mirage. The trigger is in here. And as you feel the trigger, and you don't even have to know all about it. This is not psychotherapy. You don't need to go and analyze and find beliefs. Ho'oponopono will go and look for them based on what you're feeling. And then to the great something, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you can repeat it. At this point, I've been doing this for, I think, 15 years. And so the phrases are automatic. It's the background loop in my head, even as I'm talking to you throughout this entire conversation. You and I never met before. I didn't know the questions. I didn't know what my answers would be to your questions. All of this has been based on inspiration, because I've been in the back of my head saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, as I've been talking. And why? Because I'm doing my best to be present, not allowing any memories, any influence, any preconceived ideas, any prejudices, any judgments, anything to come in outside of the divine in this moment. So I invite people to check out Ho'oponopono. At this point, there's lots of information on the internet. There's lots of videos. Of course, I've written 3 books on it at this point. Zero Limits was the first one that has pretty much shaken the world awake. And then 10 years later, I wrote At Zero. So that's the second. And the third book, which only came out recently, is called The Fifth Phrase. And I was inspired to come up with the 5th phrase, which I spent a whole book to explain. So that's Ho'oponopono in a very tight nutshell.
I'm sure there's so much more to be said about it.
Oh,
and
goodness,
I really
yes.
love this profound, powerful simplicity. You know, I always say that healing and life in general, it's simple. It's not always easy, but it's simple. We are complicating it. And I love these open phrases. You know, they can really be tailored to somebody, or just generally, or to us, and they just create so much movement and so much emotional response because they're so powerful. So I know I'm using it, and I know it's been tremendous healer in my life. You know, I just want to share that 4 months ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And you know, it was I'm not going to get to all the details, but I was misdiagnosed. And when I received the news that, and I knew something is wrong. I just knew it in my gut. And I went to the doctor and I said, look, I've got this thing on my skin. I don't like it. And she looked at it and she said, oh no, don't worry, it's fine. And that's the second time she told me that. The first one was 2 years back. And I said, listen, I have this nudge every morning. I don't like it. Please take it out. I'm not a fearful person. I'm not hypochondriac, but this thing, I don't like it. And she said, okay, you want, I'll take it out. So it came back from the lab and it was a melanoma. And when she called to tell me the news, she didn't have any more information. She didn't know what it's doing in my body. And the odds were not so good when I looked at it, because I knew that I had it in my body for years. And I had 5 days to sit with it until I went to see the specialist. And I use Ho'oponopono 24/7, I think in my dreams. And I mean, everything we spoke about it now, right? Challenges are always there. They never cease to meet us, no matter how evolved we are. And it's really about meeting it. You know, I was fully, you know, accepting it for whatever it is, trusting again that life is still have some plan for me, that it's happening for a reason. And, you know, even though it was a profound meeting with the death angel for me, because, you know, I really looked at the worst case scenario as well. I mean, kind of, you know, it's a check-in kind of situation. I was managing to go into the deepest meditations of my life. And the teachings were so profound. I'm totally free, and I'm healed, and all is good. And I'm still cultivating and integrating all the lessons because they are really, really so profound. But Ho'oponopono was something that was really like wowing me at that stage. So I really, really thank you for bringing that into the world. It's such an important piece for all of us. And I really want to encourage the audience to follow Dr. Joe Vitale's work. He's got such a wealth of information on so many subjects. It's you so well-rounded about everything, right? It's just such a you know, such a pleasure to to learn from you. And I want to ask you, what is the best place for people to find you? Where are you most active, and what's the best way?
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to be here and to take part in this great cause that you have going on. I have lots of websites. I would say the number one to go to is called vitalelifemastery.com. So it's my last name, Vitale, Vitale, lifemastery.com. Lots of books, courses, a lot of free things are there. I'm on Instagram and I post 2 or 3 times a day, I hope, inspiring videos. And I'm there as Dr. Joe Vitale, Dr. Joe Vitale. And I'm on Facebook as Dr. Joe Vitale as well. So I think those would be the number one places. And of course, my books are all on Amazon: Zero Limits, at Zero, The Attractor Factor, Life's Missing Instruction Manual, Hypnotic Writing, and about 80 other books. My music's on iTunes, Spotify.
Hold on a second. Let's just take a moment. How many books?
I don't know for a fact, but somebody told me there's 80 books that I've written. I'm too busy writing books to count them. So somebody else said it was 80 some books. If you go to Amazon, you'll find most of them there. So, yeah.
Okay, guys, just take a moment to realize that this man, this legend, wrote more than 80 books. Now, I wrote one. Actually, it's my second one, but I can't comprehend it. I really can't comprehend it. So I just want to take a moment and highlight that this is not even human as far as I'm concerned.
Not even human, huh?
Not even human.
Yeah.
So you obviously bring something from other dimensions, which you do. So yeah, just hands down for that. It's really unbelievable. And wow. I just wanted to highlight that for a second. And we will have all your links on this page, so people can just hop onto the links and find you and find your work, which I highly recommend and highly encourage. There's so much there. I mean, as I said, I've joined some of your programs, and the amount of value that you give for also such affordable prices is just wowing me all the time. So yeah, thank you for that. And I also know that you have miracles manuals as a gift for our audience, which is, yeah, if you want to have a word about it.
I have a program called Miracles Coaching, where people get coaching from people that have been trained by me. They're called Miracles Coaching, and every month they ask me questions. I've been doing it for 10 years. We recorded and transcribed the best of those questions and answers. And these are questions about life, business, relationships, everything. And we put them in 3 books called the Miracles Manual. They're the secret coaching sessions with me. And I'm making all 3 books available for free. If you go to Amazon, you can buy them. The paperbacks are there, but you can have all 3 of them free if you go to, I think it's miraclesmanual.com, and you say you'll put the website up. But I'm glad to do it. I hope that it inspires and helps a lot of people.
Thank you so much for your gracious gift and your sharing with us. I know your time is very valuable. You very busy in what you do, and I just really want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
I've greatly enjoyed it, and as I've said repeatedly, I love what you're doing. So keep on doing it. You're making a difference. You're inspiring men and women, and thank you.
It's a pleasure. Ciao now.
Bye-bye.